Hi everyone, very good morning and welcome back to Crack Grade B. So in today's lecture, we'll be completing the two of the concepts that we have left in our previous class, right? And after that, we'll also learn about journal as well as ledger. See, when we start the process of accounting, the first and foremost principles are, or the first and foremost letters are your journal as well as the ledger. In your EPFO examinations, they have asked many of the times that what is the nature of this particular account, right? Real, nominal, personal, like that. So many of the things have been asked in the previous examination, and that is why it is very important and necessary that you understand the nature of accounts as well as the rules of debit and credit, because these are important and can be asked into the examination. So let's start. We'll first be doing the concept today, two concepts that have been left, and then we'll be studying the important aspects of journal and ledger that we should know from the theoretical perspective as well as from the conceptual perspective. Fine. So in my last class, we were doing the materiality concept. One question has already been asked onto this particular concept by the EPFO, right? So the concept of materiality says that we should focus only on the material facts, right? Only material items should be recorded, should be recognized directly. Immaterial items can be clubbed together and we do not need to have a separate inventory of that. Suppose I am a medicine manufacturer. Okay? I am a medicine manufacturer. So whatever medicines I am producing, I have to maintain a record of each and every medicine, right? I need to know that where my box of medicine is. Okay? So this is how I will keep the inventory for medicine, because that is material item into my business. Whereas if I talk about stationery, let's say the stock of pencils, stock of rubbers, staplers, etc. So such kind of stationery, is it very important in my business? No. Answer is a clear no. So what I am going to do? Shall I maintain the inventory of pencil, rubber as well as these staplers, etc.? The answer is clear no. There is no need to maintain the inventory for these. They are charged to expenses because the items are immaterial. अब materiality किस तरीके से recognize होती है? How do you recognize materiality? So it comes from two aspects. Number one is the nature of transaction. Obviously, suppose I am a dealer of medicines, so anything which is related to medicines, the expiry related things or the stock related things or the suppliers related thing, everything is material for me. Why? Because this is my core business. Whereas the next thing where you determine the materiality is also from the amount. What amount is involved into that particular transaction? Now this is also subjective, right? This differs company to company. Like for a small company, a amount of 10,000 might be material. एक छोटी कंपनी के लिए 10,000 रुपए भी बहुत बड़े होंगे, ठीक है? लेकिन whereas when we compare to a big company or let's say a listed company, for them an amount of 10 lakh, maybe it does not matter to them as much. Correct? So the amount threshold is also differs by company to company, right? Now let's see the materiality concept. This is what has been told over here. Materiality of the fact depends on two things. Number one is the nature of transaction and the number two is the amount of transactions, right? Any fact that would be considered as material if its influence will be on the informed user. Suppose someone comes to me that you did not tell me this information, otherwise I would have made a different decision. So such concepts are called as a material. I'll tell you. Suppose a company is bringing out its issue of shares. Okay? A company is bringing out its issue of shares and what happened was it is having 3 factories. In India, it is having 3 factories. But one factory got destroyed by fire. One factory got destroyed by fire. But they did not disclose this information in their financial statements, right? So any user or any investor, any prospective investor will say कि why did you not inform us? अगर आपने हमें पहले बताया होता तो हम आपकी कंपनी में इन्वेस्ट ही ना करते, right? They will tell that we would have not invested in your company if you would have told us earlier that one of your factory got destroyed by fire. So that is why this item will be considered as a material item if on the basis of knowledge of this item an investor or any particular user of financial statement might have changed his process. Take now similarly, any change in the method of depreciation, any liability which is likely to arise in the near future, they will be significant information. Why? Because this is related to core of your business. Any user would like to know such information in their financial statements. Now, I guess we have understood the concept of materiality well, and we have the last concept called as the objectivity concept. In total, there are 13 concepts in accounts, and I would request you to remember all of them, right? They all are really very important, and many of the times an easy question arises out of them. The examiner just picks up the example and they give out a question. So please be prepared with the theory as well as the examples. Both are very important. Take now let's see objectivity concept. What is objectivity concept is all about? It requires that your accounting transactions should be recorded in an objective manner. Objective manner means without any biasness. जो जैसा है उसको वैसा ही शो करना. Correct? There is no falsification, there is no tinkering with the records, etc. etc. So suppose I have purchased raw material for my business worth rupees 10 lakhs. Correct? So I have to show this. Obviously, I'm going to record an entry into my books of accounts, but this entry will be supported by the purchase bill. हर एंट्री, हर ट्रांजैक्शन जो आप अपने बिजनेस में पास कर रहे हैं उसके साथ में वेरीफाइबल डॉक्यूमेंट्स होने चाहिए, राइट? Every entry that you are passing in your business should have a verifiable document. Obviously, it is also important because going forward you have to conduct audit of your transactions. And the first thing that auditor needs is vouchers. So this is what your concept of objectivity says. For example, the transaction for the purchase of material, it may be supported by the cash receipt of the money paid. Delivery challan if same is purchased on the credit. So all such things you have to attach with the document or with the entry of purchase of material. Why? Because these are important. You have to do that so that you can prove to someone that you actually have purchased the material at this particular price. ठीक है? Now there is another what you can say, a question comes that why don't we recognize any asset on market value? Why do we only record it on the basis of cash or on the basis of whatever amount we have paid for it? So the logic behind this is, see, market value is very dynamic. It keeps on changing day-to-day basis, month-on-month basis. Now, we cannot just keep on changing our financial statement as well. We want a stability, and for that we use the cost. whatever cost we might have paid to you. इसीलिए आपने देखा होगा कि even though the building might have been purchased 5 years back, but it is still recorded on the cost price only. Why it is recorded on the cost price? Because we want that our accounts should be stable. अगर मैं मार्केट वैल्यू बेसिस फॉलो करती तो एक साल में 5 लाख लिखती, अगले साल 10 लाख लिखती, फिर 15 लाख लिखती और कुछ कंपैरिजन होता ही नहीं. If I would have taken the building's value at market value, then I would have changed it every year and then no comparison could have been made. इसीलिए we follow the cash basis of recording the transactions. Now from here, I'll start talking about the journal as well as the ledger. And believe me, I have not included the very, what you can say, repetitive transactions etc. I have not. I have just included the concept जो आपको जानना जरूरी है, ठीक है. Some statements which I think that can be asked in the examination, and beyond that I will just explain you the concept while I am teaching. There might be some people who are already from commerce background, and there might be some people who are totally from a non-commerce background. For both of them it is important, because even though you are from commerce background, sometimes we tend to forget all such things. The basics we know, but there are some things that we forget over the time. So this is why it is important for the both kinds of students. Let's start talking about it. First one is the recording of business transaction. So whenever, first of all, the definition, a document which provides us the evidence of transaction, it is called as a voucher. ठीक? Suppose I have paid salary to my employees. Now I have to record this into a voucher, right? What I am going to do, I will pass the entry salary account debit to cash account. ठीक है? खर्चा गया और मेरा कैश भी कम हो गया. What are the rules of this? We will be studying just in few minutes. But this is the transaction, and this is I'm going to record through a voucher. Obviously, objectivity concept के हिसाब से I have to attach the supplementary evidences also, that how much amount I have paid to my employees. I have to attach the bank receipt. I also have to attach the employee list, then or to which number of employees I have paid, right? Such kind of things you have to attach with your voucher. So business transactions are usually evidenced by the appropriate documents. क्या क्या evidences लगाते हैं हम? Cash memo, invoice, sales bills, pay-in slip, check, etc. These are all our evidences, right? The next concept that we should talk about is called as accounting equation. Accounting equation, see, in accounts we follow the duality concept. पढ़ा था हमने एक duality concept, that every debit has a credit, corresponding credit. ठीक है, हर debit का एक credit होता है. Similarly, this is why our balance sheet is matched. तभी तो हमारी बैलेंस शीट मैच करती है. इफ आई वुड नॉट हैव फॉलोड द ड्यूअलिटी कॉन्सेप्ट, तब तो मेरी बैलेंस शीट कभी भी मैच नहीं होती, राइट? सो अकाउंटिंग इक्वेशन सेज टू मी दैट, प्लीज रिमेंबर दिस, योर assets is equal to, this is always true, right? Capital plus liabilities. Whatever transaction you might be doing does not matter. This equation will always hold true. ठीक है? Liabilities is others fund. Capital is owner's fund, right? So please remember this as well. Let's have a read of it. Accounting equation says that assets of business are always equal to liabilities as well and the capital. ठीक? Since the accounting equation, it depicts the fundamental relationships among the component, it is also called as the balance sheet equation. Now what I want for you is that please focus on such terms, balance sheet equations, accounting equations, because sometimes what happens is, I told you this, assets is equals to capital plus liabilities. You know it, right? You might be knowing it, but कभी कभी अगर आपसे पूछ लिया जाए कि what is balance sheet equation, so we might be in a thought for some moments, right? We might get confused कि अरे कुछ नया concept तो नहीं है balance sheet equation. So that is why have a eye on such terms, right? What is called as balance sheet equations, accounting equations, the claim of proprietors. That means whatever amount has been brought in by the owners of the business, that is called as the capital, as well as whatever amount we have borrowed from others, it is called as the liabilities. So we have a question that if it is the liability of the owner, how can be it's his asset? Liability of the owner. I did not get your concept, but I'll try to explain, and you see that whether your concept gets cleared or not. See, when I am talking about asset is equals to capital plus liabilities, I am talking about from the point of view of business. I am talking from point of view of business, right? Suppose I have a company called as ABC Limited. So मैं ABC Limited के perspective से बात कर रही हूँ. I am not talking from the my perspective. Number one thing. Then suppose I have brought in capital of 1 lakh rupees into my business. I have brought in capital of 1 lakh rupees into my business. I have borrowed 4 lakh rupees from the bank, right? And with the total of 5 lakh rupees, I have bought some stocks, 2 lakh worth rupees stock I have bought, and the rest amount is in my cash. So when I'm saying my cash, it is actually not my cash but of businesses, right? Capital भी business की, लाइबिलिटी भी बिजनेस की और असेट्स भी बिजनेस की. और ये जो कैपिटल है, द कैपिटल विच आई एम मेंशनिंग ओवर हियर, इट इज आल्सो अ लाइबिलिटी ऑन द हेड ऑफ बिजनेस. ABC Limited has to give back this 1 lakh rupees to me whenever ABC Limited gets shut down. ठीक, whenever ABC Limited gets closed down, this amount of 1 lakh rupees has to be returned to the owner. And in a way, this is also a liability on the head of business. Was your doubt, is your doubt clear? We are not talking about the personal expenses, personal assets or personal liabilities of the owner. No, everything of the owner is separate. Just the amount he has brought will be called as the capital. Now let's see the rules of debit and credit. Rules of debit and credit, these are the rules. Now in your accounts, you are going to see such 5 kinds of accounts, right? Assets, liabilities, capital, revenue and expenses. Fine, only such kind of 5 accounts you will see. Now if I make this easier for you, liabilities and capital, because they are written on the same side of the balance sheet. ठीक है, दोनों को बैलेंस शीट में सेम साइड में लिखा जाता है. That is why the treatment of both the accounts will be similar. Now let's see assets. Whenever you will debit the asset, it is going to increase, and if you are going to credit the asset, it is going to decrease, right? So what happens is, suppose I have received cash. As a business, I have received cash. So asset is coming to me. What I'm going to do? Cash account debit. Fine. And whereas if cash is going out of my pocket, what I'm going to do? Cash account credit. Okay. Now the explanation of this you can understand like this also. See, this is your balance sheet. This is your asset side. And this is your liability side. So just have it in your mind. This is just for explanation purpose, right? Have it in your mind that this side is a debit side and this side is a credit side. Okay? So assets increase whenever you debit. Just remember only this. Assets always increase when you debit them. Liabilities always increase when you credit them, and vice versa, right? So if you credit the asset, they are going to decrease. If you are debit the liabilities, they are going to decrease. ठीक, इतना हमें समझ में आ गया. This much we have learned. Now the next is revenues as well as the expenses. These items, they come in my P&L. These items, they come in my balance sheet. So when I'm talking about P&L, how to remember this thing? See over here. This is your P&L account. This is how it is made, right? In your P&L account, this side is called as debit side and this side is called as the credit side. Okay, now all the expenses are written over here and all the incomes are written over here. Revenue or income. So expenses, if you are going to debit the expense, they are going to increase, right? And if you are going to credit the income, they are going to increase. So this is the relation that you have to remember. Yes. So whenever they say that आपके अकाउंट से 200 रुपए डेबिट हो गए हैं, they mean to say that it has been deducted. Now why they say like this? बैंक अकाउंट को अभी यहाँ इंक्लूड मत करो वरना कंफ्यूज हो जाओगे. I will explain that as well, but just focus on to P&L account. ठीक है? So all the expenses, because they are written in the debit side, they are going to increase when debited. And they are going to decrease when credited. जो जिस side में होता है, that side suits that kind of expense, right? Revenues and incomes, because they are written in the credit side, although it has a different logic, but right now we just have to take the baby steps. That is why I am explaining to you. Income, whenever it is credited, it is increased, and whenever it is debited, it decreases. ठीक? So this is the rule that you have for your accounts. Now talking about the bank account. Why the bank account says that whenever amount comes, it says credited, and whenever the amount goes, it says debited. ठीक है? So let's understand that as well. That is an interesting thing, not related to our concept, but still I will explain that to you. See over here. Bank account. This is an asset for me, right? See, I try to include Hindi as well. मैं हिंदी भी include करती हूँ जब मैं explain करती हूँ. So some examples I do give in Hindi, but I use English. Also, English is also very simple and plain, so you can just understand. But still, I will try that I include both kinds of languages. Now see over here, bank account. ठीक? This is my bank account. So this is me. And this bank account for me is an asset. For me, it is an asset. For bank, let's say I have my bank account in Axis Bank. For Axis Bank, my bank account is a liability. ये मैंने सही बोला क्या? How many of you agree with that? How many of you agree with that कि Axis Bank के लिए मेरा बैंक अकाउंट एक liability है? Whenever we do the transaction, who sends me the message? Axis Bank. That means वो accounting कर रहे हैं अपने accounts में, right? So for them, whenever I deposit any money into my bank account, their liability gets increased. That is why they credit it. Whenever I deposit any amount, जब भी मैं अपने account में कुछ पैसा डालती हूँ, that becomes a liability for Axis Bank, and this is why they say that amount is credited. And whenever I withdraw any amount from my bank account, they say that the amount has been debited. Correct? Yes, from the perspective of bank, because they are the ones who are doing the accounting. I am not doing the accounting. When I will be recording these transactions into my books, I will read it out that bank is my asset. तो जब भी मैं अकाउंट डिपॉजिट करूंगी अपने बैंक अकाउंट में, I will always debit it because this is my asset. Always you have to see the account from the person who's preparing it. ठीक है, you have to see from that particular perspective. Now अब इतना कर चुके हैं हम. प्लीज 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 रिमेंबर दिस. ठीक है, these three are बैलेंस शीट आइटम्स. ये बैलेंस शीट में दिखते हैं आपके. ये दो आपके पी एंड एल आइटम्स हैं, प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस अकाउंट में दिखते हैं. ठीक, नाउ बैलेंस शीट I have told you assets are written on the debit side. Just assume, so whenever if asset is increasing, debit them. Whenever liability is increasing, credit them. Capital and liabilities both are having the same kind of treatment. दोनों का treatment same है क्योंकि दोनों साथ में एक ही साइड में लिखे जाते हैं. So whenever they are increased, please credit them. ठीक है, when we are talking about revenues and expenses, expenses are written on the debit side of P&L. So whenever your expenses are increasing, debit them. Suppose I have to pay salary to my employees, that is expense, I am going to debit it. ठीक है, खर्चा बढ़ाना है तो उसको डेबिट करना है. Why? Because I have to write it in the P&L के debit side में. ठीक, whenever I am earning some income, suppose I have received dividend, my income is coming to me, income is increasing, so what I am going to do, I am going to credit it. So bank account will be debited. पैसा मेरे बैंक में आ रहा है, that is an asset for me. To dividend received account, dividend received is my income and my income is increasing. So I hope now these rules of debit and credit are clear to you. They seem simple, but a person who is from non-commerce background, they might get stuck in it. So that is why I have included it in detail. Now in the whole accounting system, we follow double entry accounting basis. Double entry accounting basis means duality concept, right? We have studied duality concept. जितने भी लोगों ने concept वाली क्लास नहीं देखी है, please देख लेना. ठीक है, very very important, and believe me that is not something to skip for because the questions have been asked multiple number of times from those particular concepts. So in double entry accounting systems, every transaction affects and it is recorded at least two accounts. See, when I am saying at least two accounts, I am not saying only two accounts. No, I am saying at least. दो अकाउंट्स भी इन्वॉल्व हो सकते हैं एक ट्रांजैक्शन में, तीन अकाउंट्स भी इन्वॉल्व हो सकते हैं एक ट्रांजैक्शन में, और चार अकाउंट्स भी इन्वॉल्व हो सकते हैं एक ट्रांजैक्शन में, राइट? इससे भी ज्यादा हो सकते हैं. So what I am talking about that minimum at least two accounts तो होते ही होते हैं, उससे ज्यादा भी हो सकते हैं. Like for example, suppose I am giving salary to my employees. Salary is 10 lakh rupees in total. सभी का जोड़ के 10 lakh rupees है. Now I do not have that much cash into my hand. So what I am going to do? Salary account debit 10 lakh rupees. Fine. My expenses is increasing. 2 lakh rupees I am going to give out of the cash. So to cash account 2 lakh rupees. 2 लाख कैश से दे दिए और बाकी के 8 लाख रुपए बैंक से दे दिए. सो द रेस्ट एंट्री विल बी टू बैंक अकाउंट 8 लाख रुपीज. माय टोटल एंट्री विल बी सैलरी अकाउंट डेबिट 10 लाख रुपीज, टू कैश अकाउंट 2 लाख रुपीज, टू बैंक अकाउंट 8 लाख रुपीज. सो दिस इज व्हाट आई वांटेड टू एक्सप्लेन कि सिर्फ ऐसा नहीं है कि सिर्फ दो ही अकाउंट्स होंगे. दिस इज नॉट द केस दैट एटलीस्ट ओनली टू अकाउंट्स विल बी देयर. More number of accounts can be there. In accounting, the terms debit and credit indicates that whether the transaction to be recorded on the left hand side or the right hand side. Now for this you don't have to be confused, just remember the concept that I have told you. Now all accounts in the accounting process has been divided into 5 types. We have already studied it. Cash and bank account will be credited. Why? Because they are assets. Money is going out of my pocket. मेरी asset कम हो रही है. My asset is reducing. So I have to credit them. Fine. Next thing, see, all accounts, they are divided into 5 categories: asset, liability, capital, revenues, gains, etc. We have already studied it. Now there are two fundamental rules which are followed. These rules we have already read. See, for recording changes in assets and expenses, or losses, what is the rule you are going to follow? Increase in asset is debited, decrease in asset is credited, जो अभी हम पढ़ के आए हैं. Fine. In case of expenses or losses, if increase in expenses is debited, decrease in expenses or losses is credited. यही रूल अभी हम पढ़ के आए हैं. There is no need of explanation over here. Next is for recording of liabilities or capital or revenue. They are in the same nature. What? Liabilities and your capital and revenue gains. Okay, they are in the same nature. They all of three, they increase when credited and they decrease when debited. Someone is giving me rent, right? I am receiving rental income. So what I am going to do? Bank account debit to rent account. Okay, rent received account. My income is getting credited, so I am going to credit the rent received account. Fine. And the bank, that means the cash, the bank account, I am receiving money in. My asset is increasing and that is why I am going to debit it. Okay. So these are the rules. We have already studied it in the form of a table. Increase in liabilities, they are credited, and decrease in liabilities is debited. Similarly for capital and similarly for your revenue as well as the gains. Now please remember these. I have given an example as well. So let's suppose purchase of furniture you are doing for 60,000 rupees on cash. Now what will be the entry for it? See, cash मेरा कम हो रहा है. What is the cash? Cash is my asset. It is getting reduced. That means I have to credit it. Fine. And on the other hand, I have purchased furniture. Furniture is what? Furniture is my asset. Okay? So this is increasing. So what I am going to do? I am going to debit it. Furniture account debit to cash account. So this will be the entry that will be passed. Now finally we have arrived at the books of original entry. Now that's what I was telling you. I know that many of you might know the concept of your journal as well as ledger. But still, even if you are from a commerce background, sometimes, like I myself am a commerce background student, but at the same time, sometimes we tend to forget such kind of terminologies that we use in the basics. So this is where the revision is very, very important. Now, what is journal? Journal is see, this is the month of April. Okay? I'll just quickly explain this, will not take much time. So in the month of April, I am doing many transactions. Like I have purchased goods on credit. So what I am going to do? Purchase account debit to suppliers account because I have not paid cash. So this is the entry I am going to do. After that, I paid salary to my employees. So salary account debit to cash account. After that, I have done some sales into this particular month. So अब sales की है तो पैसा मिलेगा, right? Asset is going to increase. So cash account debit to sales account. ठीक है? Now this is how I am going to pass entries. There will be many entries. Whatever transaction, whatever number of transactions I am going to do in this particular month, I am going to record all. So this is called as journal. They are called as the journal entries. Fine. So this is the very first step This is why we call it as the original books of original entry. क्यों? जैसे ही कोई ट्रांजैक्शन होता है, the first thing I do is passing the journal entries. ठीक? So with this particular concept in your mind, let's read this. Real accounting systems, they do not record transactions directly into the accounts. The book into which the transaction is first recorded is called as the journal or book of original entry. You can see any kind of latest software also, whether you are seeing SAP, whether you are seeing Tele, in every kind of software, the first thing that we do is passing of the entry, right? In SAP, the directly entry is not passed, but in background, they already pass an entry. So hence, this is called as the books of original entry. Now, if in the examination, they ask you that what is the book of original entry, they'll give you options: cash book, journal, ledger, or trial balance. So you should understand, you should remember that journal is called as the book of original entry. After debits and credits for each transactions, they are entered into the journal. They are transferred to the individual accounts. So the process of recording transactions in journal is called as the journalizing. Okay, journalizing. Now after this particular this example I have given to you, fine. This was I passed entries for whatever transaction I am doing. Now the next step is I am going to summarize this into account wise format. Okay? Yes, it is sales is our revenue. See over here. So now I am going to summarize it. अब मुझे हर एक का account चाहिए. So how I am going to prepare? See, I am preparing just cash account over here. So I will be preparing an account like this. So all the entries that have cash as their one of the aspect, they will come over here. That means what? I am summarizing all the entries that are impacting cash account. See over here, salary was debited and cash account was credited. Okay? So इस जगह what I am going to write? By salary. Why? My cash account was credited by the salary. Take next entry is cash account debit to sales account. My cash account got debited because of the sales. मेरा कैश अकाउंट जो है वो सेल्स की वजह से डेबिट हुआ. So see over here, this is debit side, this is debit side. I am going to write to sales account. So the explanation over here is this is called as ledger. Ledger means what? Ledger का मतलब क्या होता है? आप हर एक अकाउंट बनाएंगे और उसमें जितनी एंट्रीज आ रही हैं सारी लिख देंगे. Like these are the entries I have prepared, and when I prepared the cash account, I am going to write all the entries that are impacting my cash account. मैं वो सारी एंट्रीज लिख दूंगी जो मेरे कैश अकाउंट को इम्पैक्ट कर रही हैं. ठीक है? Fine. So this is called as ledger. Such kind of ledgers will be prepared for each and every aspect which is coming there. Yes, ledger में we prepare individual accounts. This is called as the summarizing, right? So let's understand the next thing that we have in our hand. So अगर आपको ये समझ में आ गया है तो आपको ये दूसरा पॉइंट भी समझ में आ जाएगा. The process of transferring journal entry to individual accounts, this is called as posting. What was journalizing? Remember that definition. ठीक? What is posting? When you transfer the transactions from journal entry to individual accounts, this is called as the posting. This word is called as the posting. Now this sequence, the cause is the journal to be called as book of original entry and ledgers are called as the principal book of entry. Now please remember both of these differentiations. Your journal will be called as the original entry, book of original entry. Why original? बिकॉज पहली बार जब हम एंट्री पास करते हैं तो हम जर्नल में पास करते हैं, इसीलिए उसको ओरिजिनल एंट्री वाली बुक कहा जाएगा. एट द सेम टाइम, after that we prepare each of the account individually. That is why we call ledger as a principal book of entry. Fine. Now this example I have taken, purchase to Govind traders. You have purchased certain item, so purchase account debited, as well as to Govind traders account. Now next is ledger. Ledger is, it is the principal book of accounting system. It contains different accounts where transactions relating to that accounting are recorded. A ledger is the collection of all the accounts which has been debited as well as credited in the journal. Now for example, I'll tell you, suppose in the month of April, okay, or let's say in the whole year from the April to March, I have not used account named as let's say what kind of account, whatever account we can use it. Suppose I have not made use of an account named as the cartage, right? Cartage paid. This account I have not used. So this account is not going to appear in the ledger. सिर्फ वो ही अकाउंट लेजर में आते हैं जिनके लिए एंट्री पास की गई हो जर्नल में. ठीक है? All accounts that do not come in the ledger. Only those accounts comes for which entry has been passed in the ledger. Now I hope you remember this. The net result of all transactions in respect of particular account, they can only be ascertained from the ledger. For example, when I prepared a ledger for the cash account, right? So when I was preparing the ledger for cash account, just see over here. I said that in the current month I have done sales of 50,000 in cash, right? And I had to pay salary of 10,000. Now where will the balance is going to come? Balance is going to come on this side, right? So what I am going to write? By balance carried down 40,000 rupees. Isse both the sides will get balanced. 50,000, 50,000. But I have got the balance of my cash account. That means cash account is having a closing balance of 40,000 rupees. After receiving 50,000 and paying 10,000, my balance is 40,000 rupees. This is how the PDF is, the PDF, not PDF, but your ledger is summarized. And yes, PDFs are available, but in the paid course. So even if you are not a paid course member, I would like to request you that please stick to the videos that I am teaching over here. यहाँ पे आपको सारा content वैसे भी देखने को मिल जाएगा. ठीक है? So for example, if management wants to know on a particular date that from certain customer that what amount we have to pay. So such informations can only be found in the ledger. Suppose on a particular day, I as a manager, I want to know that what amount I have to pay to my supplier. This information I need to know. This is a vital information because पैसे भी तो arrange करने पड़ेंगे ना उनको pay करने के लिए. So such kind of information we get to know from our ledger balances. I am going to open the ledger account of that supplier and that is going to show me what is the closing balance. From that I get to know that okay, this is the amount that I need to pay. Fine. This is the format of your ledger. Now, few of the distinctions between the journal as well as the ledger. Let's see that. Very important, because I found this piece of information important. That's why I have included it. See, journal and ledger, these are most important books of the double entry mechanism, right? Now, there are some differences as well. We are going to see the differences one by one. Number one, journal is called as the book of first entry. The ledger is book of second entry. Once we have recorded the transaction in the journal, after that, supplier's account is a kind of liability for you. Supplier's account is a liability for you. Why? See, on which side supplier's account will be written? Supplier is a creditor for you. It is going to be written in the liability side. ठीक है? So, देखो supplier ने क्या किया है? Supplier has given fund to you. Fund means the indirect funding. He has given you the raw material, but he has not taken money from you. So what is going to mean that? That means you are utilizing his funds for a period of 2 months. Correct? So this is a liability which you need to pay. Next is the journal is a book of chronological record. Chronological record means it follows date wise. Like on 1st April, what are the expenses I have done? I will record them. On 2nd April, what I have done? I will record them. 3rd April, 4th April, like that. So it follows the date-wise mechanism. Whereas the ledger is the book of analytical record. Analytical record, see, where we teach accounts in the classes, at that particular time, yes, we tell them that yes, in the ledgers, these are the dates, etc. that also come. But believe me, at the end of the day, ledger account is not about dates. Ledger account is to know that what is the closing balance of this particular account. Like I have given you the example of cash account. Cash account का example दिया था. वहां पे हमने देखा कि क्लोजिंग बैलेंस कैश अकाउंट का कितना है? 40,000 रुपए. So this is the piece of information that we are looking from the ledger accounts, right? Journal as a book of source entry, it gets the greater importance as an evidence. Whenever in the auditing or any kind of mechanisms, whenever we need evidence, journal is given more importance than the ledger. Obviously, because journal is a principal book of entry. Next is the transactions is the basis of classification of data within the general, and account is the basis of classification within the journal, that within the ledger. जर्नल में हम क्या करते हैं? ट्रांजैक्शंस रिकॉर्ड करते हैं. एंड लेजर में हम क्या करते हैं? वी आर मेंटेनिंग अकाउंट्स. इंडिविजुअल अकाउंट्स मेंटेन करना, दिस इज द नीड ऑफ द आर इन द जर्नल. प्रोसेस ऑफ रिकॉर्डिंग in the journal, this is called as journalizing, and the process of recording in the ledger, this is called as the posting. ठीक है? Now we also have to read about the classification of ledger accounts, but let's see, the ledger accounts, they are classified into 5 categories, right? Now all these accounts may be further put into 2 groups: permanent account as well as the temporary accounts. Now can you give me example that what can be the permanent accounts? What can be the permanent accounts? Any knowledge onto that? See, the accounts which are going to be maintained year by year. Year by year हमको वो ledger maintain करना है, that is called as the permanent one. And the accounts which can be get closed in an year itself, those are called as the temporary accounts. Fine. So I'll just give you the explanation over here. Suppose machinery account. Machinery account is my permanent account because this machinery is going to stay with me for 10 years, and for whole 10 years I have to prepare this account. Next is temporary accounts. Temporary accounts means, let's say stationary expenses. So this account I am going to open every year and I am going to close every year. Fine. So this will be called as a temporary account. So the more explanation onto this we will be discussing tomorrow. This is it for today. I hope that you have learned something out of this particular session, and if you did, then please do not forget to like this video. Thank you so much for joining in, and we will see you tomorrow on the same time.